Pleased to be here with you today, and soon each of you will know how distinguished our panelists are. Each one of them will give a presentation. It will be an 8-minute presentation, and then in the remaining time, we will give questions in order to carry out some dialogue. We have, first of all, Saskia Ochoa, Coordinator and Liaison Office of the Executive Branch with the Christian Community, Dominican Republic. Then Héctor Oswaldo Samayoa Sosa, who is a lawyer and Executive Director and the Presidential Commission for Peace and Human Rights from Guatemala. And after we have Amanda Marchena, Coordinator of Religious Affairs for the government of the state of Sonora, Mexico. And then we have Alberto Herrera Rodríguez, Undersecretary of the Presidency, Justice and Relations with the Courts from the government of Spain.
Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Dios les bendiga a todos.
May God bless each one of you.
Soy Saskia Ochoa,
I am Saskia Ochoa, Coordinator and Liaison of the Executive Branch with the Assembly of God in the Dominican Republic, and I am also a functionary within the Presidency of the Republic in coordinating the Liaison Office of the Executive Branch. In first order, I would like to thank the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the University BYU for this magnificent opportunity to participate, in my case, for the first time in this symposium. We'd like to thank you for your hospitality and for making this experience an unforgettable experience for those that are participating. And it is a high honor in order to be able to share this with you, representatives of so many varied countries, and as we become enriched with one another's knowledge. Without a doubt, we find ourselves today in the last day of this symposium. And we can say that this has been a marvelous experience, enriching, and that has allowed us to establish some context of the need for religious liberty as an essential tool in order to build and guarantee peace in our societies. It is critical that we eliminate discrimination based on religious beliefs that threaten the peaceful interdialogue, as has been exposed from various presenters that we have been able to see. And that is why it is necessary to foster interfaith dialogue as an effective tool of mutual understanding. Interreligious dialogue must be carried out in every level, not only at the global level, like in this symposium where everybody is represented, but this must also be done at the local level, where we can allow citizens to express within each society, and that this dialogue can contribute to the prevention of conflicts and enrich social cohesion and participation from the citizenship. We have been asked to speak a little bit about the context of our nations. I'm going to give some information about the religious demography in the Dominican Republic. Our population has approximately 1.2 million people, according to the last census that was carried out in 2022, of which 49% profess the Catholic religion. 26% of our population professes the religion Protestant or evangelical, and according to this survey, and this was carried out in 2016. Right now, the Council for Evangelical Unity establishes that the population, that the evangelical population is approximately 30%, In 2018, we found that 28% of the population did not have a specific religion that was declared, but they also did not identify as atheist or agnostic. We also have a minority of varying beliefs, Muslims, of the Baha'i faith, we have Jews, and we in fact have a Jewish community established in Sosúa, Puerto Plata, which is a province of our country, which has really become highlighted when it comes to entrepreneurship. We have Buddhists and we have Hindus. Due to the great Haitian migration that we have, where we have our brother country, Haiti, given that we share territory with the Haitian nation, we also have participants of voodoo or Santeria, but we do not have statistics about the exact amount of each one of these. We must also mention that there are a great number of believers of the Christian faith from these Haitian migrants, and we have churches and now small congregations that are established in the country from the Haitian community, and these churches are distributed in the entire geography of the country. Our Dominican people is eminently a believing people. We are a people of faith. And this is founded on the fact that our forefathers established the Trinitary right in the sacred scriptures. And the Dominican Republic has in its patriotic symbols, we have at its center the national shield, which has an open Bible in the scripture of John 8:32, which establish, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. The theme of our shield is God, country, and liberty. And evidently, this really weighs on the conscience of our citizenship, and we have a people that profess and respect the Christian faith. In the legality of things, the Constitution of the Dominican Republic establishes the freedom of religion and belief. In its Article 45, the state guarantees the liberty of conscience and cult with subjection to the public order and the respect of good order. At the same time, we have an agreement with the Santa Sede since 1954, which declares that the Catholic religion is the official religion of the country, and it is given special privileges that other denominations do not have. Currently, the religious denominations that are not Catholic are being analyzed by a project of law of religious liberty or religious associations so that it can be given for consideration to the Congress of the Republic and have a legal framework for Protestant religions. Having said what I said in the existence of this agreement in our country, all religions have liberties and the freedom of expression and the liberty of action. They can carry out all of their observances both publicly and within their temples. Within this allowance that the government gives us, we must highlight that we also have a law that allows the Bible to be read at schools. We also have a law that celebrates the National Day of the Bible, which is September 27th of each year, this day of celebration. And for it, we also, the current President of the Republic, since his very first period, established and allowed the celebration of a religious act within the governmental house, which is directed by the Office of Christian Ties, in which I work, with the Office of Catholic Works, and both are within the presidential palace. This Office of Christian Ties carries out all the work for the Christian community, not Catholic. We have all kinds of various demands. We have help. We've been asked for help about labor, about immigration, things that have to do with real estate, with lands. When we help all different denominations, we can do this work without distinction between religion, and we try to offer this service that is well deserved by each one of them. This office also deals with help of the economic kind. It allows for donations for the construction and remodeling of temples, and it also allows to help churches that have the need for different kinds of equipment or for renovations. And in this office, we receive donations with funds that were established by the government in order to give this help and so that the ministries can continue. And we also help more vulnerable people so that they can carry out their missionary work. And all this type of help we can offer from our office of Christian ties. Without a doubt, the needs are great within our faith community. At a national level, this office permanently has its doors open to the dialogue. We have a work table that unites the principal ecclesiastical leaders and from Christian institutions in the country, and it allows us to have an ongoing dialogue between government and church. And we do this in a synergistic way in order to try to talk about things of public interest and within our community. Now, to conclude, distinguished brothers and sisters from various nations that are found here, we have a long way to go. Each one of us in our cities, in order to be able to guarantee religious freedom and equitable treatment. But I think the exchange of experiences and knowledge, as we are doing today, together we can get what we need, and we will be able to enjoy it together. Thank you so much.
Buenas tardes, cuánto gusto.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with each one of you. Thank you very much to the university and all those that have contributed that we may be here today. I have been introduced. My name is Oswaldo Samayoa. I just finished my period in the presidential committee in order to be able to do other things that the president has asked me to do. I think it is very important that we have this space to speak of religious freedom, especially in democracies that are so fragile, like some countries have been experiencing in Latin America. And I'm talking about the region that I belong to, which is Central America, where countries such as Nicaragua are going through the risk of nationalization. And through this religious nationalism, we could see persecution of the political kind. And I could say that Guatemala, at any given time, began to go towards that. When we're talking about radical postures that started to come to the light since 2016 until the end of 2023, where in one way or another, religious liberty that was guaranteed constitutionally in the country, we start to see a narrative or a proposal that we should focus only on the preponderance of a religion. Under this, I believe that one of the topics that I cannot fail to mention is that religious liberty is a work, it is a right that we must defend every single day. And it is a defense that we will have to continue to do all of our life. It's not something that we can just do once or have one talk or during a brief period of time. It is something that must be established historically to defend religious freedom. It will always be exposed to the risks of being minimized or find this religious nationalism. Now, within this topic, it seems, or there are signs, there are speculations that we should be understanding the interreligious dialogues and the spaces that are given have a problem from the Latin American focus or from the perspective of the peoples of Latin America. And that's because we're saying that we have spiritual liberty that comes from our people, Maya, Xinca, and Garifuna, understanding that the Mayan people have 25 different branches where we don't necessarily speak of the existence of religion, but we speak about the existence of philosophies and cosmovisions and perspectives that have to do with the spirituality of each one of these peoples. One of the challenges that seems to arise before us is how we give space for spiritual liberties, and with this also talk about the building of peace. Internally, and maybe we should remember Machiavelli when he says we should have good laws in the interior. He used to tell the princes, you have to have good laws. These good relationships, these good interreligious associations can't be duplicated, and we find them in Peru, Bolivia, and Guatemala, and we see that these countries require this integration, this participation, and these spaces of spirituality. So now we have a situation, which to me would be the first topic of conversation, when we add the topic of spirituality. What morality or what ethics should we promote in order to avoid feelings of superiority? From spirituality to religion, and from religion to spirituality, in order so that each part understands one another and we can build peace. I'm sure some of you know the story of Guatemala and know that we are in a period of post-internal conflict that destroyed us for 36 years, and where the indigenous peoples suffered the greatest amount of victims. 250 people disappeared, tortured, and executed. In some cases, the instrumentalization of religions, and some of the spiritualities of these people were also used against them in order to convince them of certain things, and then destroyed them in their essence and their culture, and particularly they were put in a situation of disappearing, as we can see in the cases of genocide that we know of in the Guatemalan tribunals. Religious liberty cannot deny the spirituality of people, and that is a discussion which includes a topic of morals and ethics that we must talk about, so that we can solidify peace in these interfaith communities that require it. Perhaps when we speak of religious liberty oriented toward this construction of peace, there is an essential point that I think we have heard mentioned, which is the topic of dignity. And here I'd like to tie it to human rights. Normally, and in Guatemala it has happened during the year 2021 or 2022, the Congress of the Republic promoted a certain type of legislation that was greatly questioned in terms of protecting the dignities. And this was done in a religious speech. And the courts and the population became opposed to this normative for something critical and essential. They said, we cannot just simply give up our moral positions, and we cannot mistreat the dignity of other people. This means that we will experiment different challenges that cannot be simply laid aside politically, but they belong to the structure of the dialogue of structure within our communities. And what I'm talking about is that religious liberties has within its many challenges, and as we speak about dignity, we must present a serious conversation within different contexts about sexual liberty, about participation of women, about the participation of the indigenous peoples, about the differences in expression that there are within each of these societies. This agenda that at times we tend to deny has to be talked about in a responsible manner, but I think we must talk about it from the religious leaders from the spaces of social movement and not just leaving it to politicians, because politicians also has its own agendas that can turn religious liberty into a circumstance that generates truly that it can damage people and their intrinsic dignity. Thank you very much.
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. I am very happy for being here with you all today. I feel thrilled. I am thrilled. And I would like to thank BYU first for this invitation. I don't want to forget to mention my friend Michelle Lopez. She is the Director of Public Relations in our home country, Mexico, for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, with whom we have a great friendship now. We built a great friendship, and because of that, of the promotion that she's had, that's why we're here today, this afternoon. My name is Amanda Marchena Morales. I'm originally from the northwest of Mexico. I am currently the State Coordinator of Religious Affairs of the state government. This achievement is recent. We achieved in our state. I'm speaking in Mexico, was declared a non-denominational state in 1955, but after that, with years, it was necessary to create some laws, and that's how we created the interdenominational law for protection of cults, that in 1992. But in Sonora, which is I'm currently living, for the first time in our lives, there's an office of attention to religious affairs. So it's been a struggle for more than 13 years. We fought for this to happen. I am the one who is working hard, and like we say in Sonora, and this Office of Interreligious Affairs has also achieved 10 out of 75 districts in Sonora. 10 of those have coordination of religious affairs now. This is a major achievement for us because in Sonora there was nothing like this. 2 years ago, a little over 2 years, we were assigned to this position, and we've achieved these achievements. I am sensitive on the subject because of my life experience, since I was born and raised next to a man who dedicated his life not only to the service of the church, but of the community in general. From a very age, I was formed in a culture of peace, love, and tolerance towards any person, and to treat others with dignity without conditioning their gender, academic preparation, social status, or religion. In addition, I was part of the organization of events that we called interdenominational fellowships that were attended by people with different doctrines and creeds. My father, in addition, is passionate about soccer, and that through sports you can attract young people, rescue them, and guide them to a healthy life, physically and spiritually, which is why I had to participate in many youth soccer tournaments, basketball, volleyball, and other sports with different people. I have another particularity, which I'm going to share with you all now. I have received the gift of singing over the years. I have developed at different times in my life that facet, that of a singer. And this allowed me to participate in Catholic, evangelical, and also social events. On the other hand, I must recognize that in Sonora, Mexico, there are historical examples of violence due to religious persecution. From the very Constitution of 1917, the expression of worship, the growth of the churches, and therefore the development of their membership were limited. It was a Sonoran, in fact, Plutarco Elias Calles, who years later, in 1926 tried to establish prohibitions to such a degree that believing Americans rose up in arms, generating pain and suffering. Currently, for perverse political purposes, there is an attempt to create the idea that religions promote intolerance and violence, but that is not the case. While it is true there are religious extremisms which intend to impose their doctrine through violence, they are a minority which causes a lot of noise, it is true, but there are more of us who are good. In Sonora, we do not have problems with religious intolerance. On the contrary, there are examples throughout the state that demonstrate today, more than ever. I'm going to share just two. And we've mentioned those a little bit. The first example is the pastors' alliances in the municipalities. There's some evangelical, Trinitarian, Unitarians, and they all sit together, they pray together and plan together, and they work very united. And the second example is that of interreligious councils, where all the religions organized in the state participate. In Sonora, there we can see Catholics, Anglicans, Evangelicals, and the Church of Jesus Christ. They would not miss there, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In fact, the president has just been named as part of the board members in Sonora. He is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, my friend Gerardo Novoa, with whom I have a great relationship. These examples are not just because of the faith proposed and promoted by all religions, love for the neighbor, love for your brother, for your sister, that not only helps, that is, surpasses any other matters. The church, we can see actions of benefit for the community in which they are located, such as the soup kitchens, dispensaries, counseling for young people and couples. And today, churches fulfill many of the objectives to which governments are obligated, mainly in two. One is social welfare and public safety. How many of you, or of us here, have been witnesses that the church arrives in those areas where the patrol cars, the police cars cannot make it? Yes, thanks to them, we can reach out to all the youth and families. Because of all this that I'm saying, I can assure that taking my own life as an example and that of millions in my country and worldwide, by instructing a person in love from a very early age, it is a guarantee for the construction of peace in adult life. And the proof is in how today I can have an impartial, tolerant, and respectful performance in my work, providing attention to those who believe and even to those who decide not to believe. Those who decide not to believe from the position that has been entrusted to me as a state official in my country. There's a song I was told to sing if I wanted to sing, so I'm going to sing. Peace. Peace. How sweet the peace. Is that peace that the Father gives me. I pray to Him to flood the earth forever, to flood my being, and to fill it with His waves of celestial love. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It is very difficult to stand up here after hearing Amanda delight us with that beautiful voice. It is very complicated, very hard for me to stand up and speak regarding something that is very of interest to all of us, but I'm going to try it. I'm going to give it a try. Effectively, In the first place, I would like to say that it's an honor and a privilege to be able to share this evening, this afternoon with you all, what I believe that can be something very interesting, which is the Spanish experience in dealing with religious freedom, the advances that we've seen in the last few years, and the challenges that we are facing, because I believe that by sharing experiences, like it was mentioned before, we can help improve and to implement us by hearing from other people's experiences and vice versa. How to promote a new context of religious freedom throughout the world, in which our states, democratic states, move forward and progress. And of course, they foster these scenarios of peace that were also mentioned by the previous speakers. I also would like to thank the invitation to participate of this forum. I would like to thank the university, BYU, and also to thank the warm welcome that we've received to all of us who have been participating of this event. I would like to start naming the relationship that there's in Spain between state and religion. First of all, I need to explain that historically, Spain has lived has been part of a religious state due to the monarchies in the past, but also most recently during the period in which our home country that we call the Franco dictatorship, in which the non-official relationship of the state was the Catholic Church. This element explains very well the frame in which we currently are, because even the Constitution from 1978 moved the religious framework from that of a Catholicism to a neutral, non-partial, and allowing all religions and all persons to worship according to their own wills. Nowadays, the state government is based on 4 basic fundamentals, 4 pillars to which I'll be referring to, who are going to help us on how to see the Spanish model between the state and the religions. This model pivots between 2 fundamental pillars. The first one is freedom of religion. Freedom as a way, the group of rights held by those who worship is the right to, of course, believe in what they decide to believe and to practice those beliefs within the framework of the Constitution. I would like to give an example. A recent case that we had during the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, liberties were not completely suspended, but it was a very special time in life where we had some limitations, and all religious institutions had to help us and provide assistance to, because we had limitations on the ability of movement, transportation, and, the attendance to those centers of worship was limited. The second pillar is the one related to equality. Of course, there's agreements with different religious entities. We have an international agreement with the church, with the Catholic Church. We have agreements with Protestant, Jewish, and Muslim religions, and other religions, for example, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witnesses, the Buddhists, or the Orthodox. We find ourselves in a general space in which several religious organizations are participating, and that's part of the registry of religious organizations, because all these religions have to have a legal entity approved by the state to be in equal footing with the other denominations. The third pillar is laicity, neutrality, the separation between the state and religion. The state does not value the beliefs, meaning that the state does not judge those. And there's no interference in the administrative autonomy by the churches. And of course, the churches are not part of the administrative part of the government. And the fourth pillar, very important one, which is the cooperation. In this space is a separation between the state and religion. We have a place in which the government participates of the promotion, better said, remotion of all the obstacles for all the religions to be able to practice their functions freely, and for religious freedom to have a real space for its development. In this framework, I think it's very important to say some of the instruments, relevant instruments which we're using. For example, we have a foundation, and we, comprised by members of the government and from different religions. We provide some financial assistance to those institutions that so require, or the participation from different religious entities, from their leaders, along with the public authorities to develop, some legal framework. For example, now we're currently reviewing some laws regarding the financing, the funding, and the exemption status of some of these organizations. They share their opinion, the state pays attention to them, and we find consensus, which would allow us to approve laws that are approved and that also protect religious freedoms. This chart can show the distribution in my home country of the different religious beliefs. Of course, Catholicism is number one there. Second, those who manifest no belief, that they are not part of any religion in particular, and then other minority religions that are part of the same agreements that the Spanish government has with other religions. Now, please allow me to speak now about some of the recent measures approved from the government and what are some of the challenges that we're facing. One of the top guidelines and normatives that have been approved that connect all these matters with protection of human rights. Is second plan of human rights developed by our home country, by Spain, which is mainly focused on the prevention of hate crimes, those who are very concerning, especially through social media. We have a public tool which allows us to supervise the social media and trying to identify the spaces where those hate speeches are being done and published, and working in connection with some private companies to remove this content. Secondly, also it's important to mention the main challenge that we currently have. For example, when we are now speaking about the migration of people, the migration in Europe, and particularly in Spain, that is very much related to the increase of diversity, the need of creating new tools and social dialogue to incorporate into our ordinance and into our culture and society as part of that constitutional approach. And we need to share all the concerns coming from the different religious groups and the citizens, and trying to expand our culture and the variety and diversity in which the religious factor is very important, in that can help us in preventing those disagreements and also in integrating and helping cohesion in the community. Finally, I would like to congratulate all the participants in this event, because it's been very enriching for all of us. It allows us to learn from these experiences, different experiences in this framework, which is this university. Thank you very much.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias a los panelistas.
Thank you very much to each one of the panelists, and I think that we should thank each one of them with an applause, please.
Cada uno de ellos es de un país.
Each one of them is from a democratic country in which they have religious liberty. But and we have heard in other sessions that religious liberty is generally respected more in democracies, in democratic states where there is a division, a separation between the church and state. And so, given that this is so important, that there be a separation between church and state, as governmental functionary, how can I collaborate? How can,
Bueno, es deseable,
when, is this wanted or is it possible
que las religiones
that religions and governments can collaborate? Is this possible? And I would like to hear from the panelists as to this. Can you hear me? Good. Yes, I think that
no se escucha.
we can't really hear.
¿Ahí se escucha?
Okay, can you hear me now? Good. This is a good topic. I'm convinced that a good coordination between the government and the state and the religious association is of great social impact. The church in general, the religious associations, they by themselves with their own resources get to places where we as government at times cannot arrive. So I am convinced, and I have seen it. I have seen how the church contributes in a great way towards these governmental programs from the states. Another comment? Yes, I think that the cooperation is the necessary complement for separation of church and state. The state cannot live, cannot give its back to fundamental right like religious liberty. And I think that, on the other hand, this happens in all sectors of the public. We must explore possibilities that are not only state-sponsored. We must also hear from minorities, and in this case, we must. The cooperation is an absolutely necessary complement. I completely agree with Amanda. We coincide in this. We have lots of similarities in this cooperation that is necessary and needed and wanted. Because, for example, we have been able to recognize that the church must be a social arm. We see plans from the government that have not had a good result until both religion and government can cooperate. So I think that this cooperation is necessary. Thank you. I don't know how much I'll be able to add, because I think that we've talked about the fundamental importance of cooperation. So if we guarantee religious liberties and they cooperate, especially if we see I think we can see public policies that have a high rate of good for everybody. So we can see in Latin America, we see stories of corruption. We have seen that these things have not been able to be instituted in places of low resources, and cultures and religions have been able to mitigate the effects that this has. And there are examples. Are there specific examples of what you have seen in terms of this? In Mexico, through the Public Health Office, they have asked us for cooperation. They have asked for help from the directors of all the directors in the countries. They have asked us for help to bring psychologists in the states that they can contribute so that we can talk about mental health. And so, yes, we have seen a program created by the Federation, and this was applied, and we have seen that this has been something really good for our country. Were you going to say something? Well, if we're talking about examples, I wanted to mention one. And given my previous responsibilities before I had these obligations, I was a subsecretary of health services during the pandemic, and the collaboration that we received from all of the different religious sectors was extremely important, because the first things that we saw in our country, the first implementations of certain safeguards were implemented by the religions, and there was a certain degree of tension when it came to the virus in our country, and the focus was placed on these countries, and the comprehension, the collaboration, and this cooperation that we spoke of before was key in order to facilitate these public policies according to for health, and we understood that they couldn't attend religious gatherings like we had done before, that we had to respect the distance, and this collaboration, this direct dialogue that we had with the religious groups was possible, and it was fast in this case of emergency, because before we had also had a good standing relationship. So this was something that was truly helpful for us. It has also been mentioned, and we've talked about anti-Semitism and the attacks on minority religions, and it seems like in your countries, the government respects human rights and religious liberties, and at times we see that at times persecution comes from other religions. How can we resolve this? How can we fix this in your countries? If you've seen this, how are you resolving it? Well, it's through mediation. There is no other way. If we see it in our country, if we see it in the southern states, I think in Sonora we have very close to the United States, and I don't know if this is influenced in having a greater degree of tolerance, but we persecute one another from one religious association to another. And well, what we have seen, the instrumentation that we've seen, that we have used is mediation. I think that there's a great point being made in this question, and this is something that I want to mention. We have not finished the discussion about this ethical element, about how we shouldn't feel superior when I belong, or not feeling like I have the absolute faith and take away the faith of another person. I think that this is a critical element. And something that we must consider is that when we talk about democracy, we cannot speak of democracy without the participation of everybody else, and that everybody can live their life as they want. Religions contribute to this. I think one of the fundamental pieces is interreligious dialogue, because we cannot just leave it to the politicians. Politicians always have an interest, and when we have this interest, it is different. So I can get to the I can use religion as an instrument, and this is what must be avoided. I think we also have, we must have something that religions must do together. The members within these religions that are politicians must not take to the political sphere the beliefs or these religious morals that they have. We must not let them use this as an establishment of power. And I think this is a social dialogue that is pending in other countries, that others perhaps might be more advanced in it, but this also contributes to the response of this question. In reality, in our Dominican Republic, the dialogue is obviously the most effective tool, where we see that limitation of one does not have supremacy over the other. So this is where education and religious education has to intervene, and we must promote tolerance. We must not, we must not allow preponderance to happen one over the other, but with dialogue, tolerance, and education, we can overcome these things. Sorry, Denise. Education and culture is very important in this theme. And given the time I have, I wasn't able to share this, but in the first time in the history of Sonora, we were able to carry out the religious roundtable, in which we had the participation of the majority of the associations, the ones that have the most presence within the state, and they had ministers and clergymen from all of these different associations, and this truly helped us, and it helped convince our state and contributed to this topic. Ever since they are really little, they are teaching them in schools. Education is important, and we must teach them since they are young to respect other people.
¿Tenía comentario o no?
Comment? No.
Sí.
And did you see resistance when this happened, when it came from other religions? Since it was something, the Office of Interreligious Councils, this isn't new in Sonora, so there was still some people that said, I can't attend because this person's going to be there or that other person's going to be there. So I did know firsthand of other people that didn't go for that reason. Others would see it as ecumenism, and I told them we're not trying to create just one religion. That's not what we're trying to do. What we want is for there to be religious tolerance. That is what we are trying to do, and that's why we're trying to have these meetings and these roundtables, and we've done this in Mexico, and with the Federation we have tried to create a culture of peace through having these interreligious fairs. Honestly, there was a lot of participation. We had a place with 400 seats, and we had almost 700 or 800 people. And we were also transmitting this live. So it was really just something that was historic, and it had a lot of positive dialogue that occurred after. Yeah, I'd like to talk about an idea that Héctor was explaining before. The importance of the politics must not use religion as a tool for public policy. And the flip or the reverse is also true. We must not let religions use politics as a tool. I am a firm believer and defender that we cannot turn our backs to what it means to practice or exercise freedom of religion. This is fundamental so that we can be integrators, so that everybody trusts in these institutions, so that they can be a neutral party. It's because when a religion is turned into a religion of the public institution, this stops belonging to somebody. And I think that this is truly important. We in Spain, with all of our experience, we come from a confessional state where religion was used by a dictatorship, and we have a central concern of guaranteeing that the public square is a space for everybody. And these last years we have taken significant steps in this direction. The Catholic Church is still the majority, and they still have certain fiscal privileges, and they have been taken away. And we have come to an agreement with them, and this was important because we didn't want to be perceived as giving unjust favoritism. But these are acts. These last few years, we've had we paid our respects to the victims of COVID, and everybody participated, and it wasn't just something Catholic. So I think we've made great advances in this direction. This is important, and it is the correct way to do it.
Sí, por supuesto. Sí, perdón que abuse, pero
I don't.
Este diálogo es para ustedes.
No, this dialogue is for you. I wanted to resist, but I have something I want to say. I think it is very important to go back to the theoretical framework and the theoretical frameworks. I think the interreligious dialogues should abandon the posture of tolerance. In what way? The concept of tolerance can be seen as, I see you, I respect you, I know you profess something different than I, but I never allow myself to get to know you. And I think that interreligious, what it looks to create is that we get to know each other so that we can learn from one another and find these things that allow us to be humans together in communion, in peaceful communion. The tolerance, it makes me be more distant, but interreligious collaboration brings me closer. I have heard both concepts in these different sessions, but I think academically and conceptually, with it, when we're talking about the respect of religious liberty, we must see how we can advance them. That's something I wanted to mention. Okay. So in the differing religious communities we have seen in this symposium, we have seen several religions that come together to talk. And in some countries, I imagine that they are coming together to form interreligious groups, but I would assume that there are other groups, like you mentioned before, that they are afraid to lose their own faith, or that it is a petition that they abandon their faith. Or perhaps we have mentioned that we have our values, our religious values, our doctrines, and at times, if some may be afraid that if they recognize the rights of not only from the religious minorities, but also of cultural groups or sexual groups that are minorities, that we are abandoning our doctrines. And so how can governments help, or how can we remove this obstacle from the religious organizations? Well, I think that that's a very complicated question. But I do feel that the secret, and I've been hearing and listening to it in all of the plenary sessions that we've heard, that, as you mentioned before, that your wife really, as I mentioned to your wife, I've really been impacted. They really hit a home run with that. I feel that the critical point is the culture and the education. I think that education is always a critical role in advancement, to get to know each other profoundly. We need to learn to see and believe and come to understand what others believe. And I think we can do this all in conjunction. We live in complex societies where we are able to associate one with another. It's true that the new ways to, the new needs that we have to communicate in everyday life, when we talk about not discriminating against sexual preferences, there are different challenges in the public sector and for religions, but I think that knowledge and dialogue and empathy, and we must be empathetic towards those citizens that are more vulnerable. So this is the common ground that I am sure that we can find solutions.